Yep. Shalom Israel. Peace Israel. Brakat YaHaWah, Brakat YaHaWaShi. Brakat YaHaWah, Brakat YaHaWaShi. Brakat YaHaWah, Brakat YaHaWaShi. BaHaSham, Rawcha, Qadash. Right? Double honors to the apostle and the elders of Great Millstone, who teach well and rule well. Peace and salutation to the Akim pushing his truth all over the earth. And to the awkward listening, quietly listening and learning, Shalom. This is Brother Shema from the Pillars of Benjamin camp here in Toronto with another lesson. And the title of this lesson is Iran, also known as Persia, wants to indict DJ Trump, man. You know, press charges, right? But we'll watch this article that came out on RT News today, right? Quick article. We'll watch it and then we'll hit some precepts.
Iran has issued an arrest warrant for US President Donald Trump over the drone killing of the country's powerful top general in January. The Tehran prosecutor is quoted by a state-run news agency saying that Trump and 35 others face murder and terrorism charges over the death of Qasem Soleimani, who was in charge of the Revolutionary Guard's elite Quds force. Iran wants Interpol's help to detain Trump by issuing a red notice, which is Interpol's highest-level request for making an arrest. Following Soleimani's killing, the Iranian parliament unanimously voted to designate the US Army and the Pentagon as terrorist organizations. Let's get some reaction now from Tehran.
So yeah, they want to designate the US Army as terrorist organizations, man. The US Army and the Pentagon as terrorist organizations, man. You know what I mean? Let's get some precepts, you know? Yeah, I saw this article, saw this video and some precepts. Jeremiah 50 verse 43. The king of Babylon hath heard the report of them, right? The king of Babylon. We know that's DJ Trump, man. The king of Babylon, king of Babylon. Babylon the Great, glory of the Chaldeans, right? The king of Babylon hath heard the report of them, and his hands wax feeble. Listen, I've seen the last couple times that Trump's been on the scene, DJ Trump, and he's looking kind of tired still, you know what I mean? He's looking kind of beat up, you know what I mean? Worn out, you know what I mean? Tired, you see me, right? The king of Babylon hath heard the report of them, and his hands wax feeble. Feeble meaning to get weaker, right? Anguish took hold of him, and pangs as of a woman in travail. Anguish. Let's look up the word anguish. Pangs as of a woman in travail, right? Pains as a woman in travail, labor pains, right? Let's look up the word anguish, right? The king of Babylon. Anguish. Gets here to edify, you know what I mean? Halal, YaHaWah, BaHaSham, YaHaWaShi, BaHaSham, Rawcha, Qadash. Edify the flock, feed the flock, you see me? Pull out the elect, you see me? Anguish. Acute bodily or mental suffering. Mental suffering. So we're seeing the king of Babylon, DJ Trump, looking kind of tired, worn out, you know what I mean? Tuckered, you know, beat up, you know what I mean? Acute bodily or mental suffering. Distress, anxiety, rage, right? Distress, difficulty. You see me? Difficulty. Precept comes to mind with that right there, man. Right? The king of Babylon hath heard the report of them, and his hands wax feeble. Anguish, right? Difficulty, distress, mental stress, right? Hath took hold of him, and pangs as of a woman in travail. Let's get Job chapter 20. Job chapter 20. Verse Job chapter 20 verse 19. There's a lot of meat in this chapter, you know. Read the whole book of Job chapter 20. There's a lot of meat. Job chapter 20 verse 19. Because he hath oppressed and hath forsaken the poor, because he hath violently taken away a house which he builded not. Right? That's Babylon the Great, America the Great. He's suppressed. He's taken away from the poor. Right? The poor, the oppressed. Right? The children of Israel. Right? Israel being a people before a place. Right? The so-called indigenous, the so-called Latinos, the so-called blacks. because he hath oppressed and hath forsaken the poor, because he hath violently taken away a house which he builded not. Violently taken away. Another precept comes to mind, man. We'll come back to this Job 20, and we'll also go back to the Job 50 verse 43. Violently taken away. Micah chapter 2, right? Covet fields, oppress a heritage. Let's get it. Micah chapter 2, verse 2. And they covet fields and take them by violence, right? Babylon the Great, America the Great. They've gone through pillaging, raping, robbing, stealing. Oh, man. But there's more. Let's get another precept. We'll come back to this. Luke chapter... It was in my brain. I'm gonna have to look it up. Sometimes the mental blanks. You see me? The thief cometh to kill, murder, and destroy. It's in Luke. It might be Luke chapter 16. The thief. John chapter 10 verse 10. Salakia, I saying Luke. John chapter 10 verse 10. Right? And this is all Babylon the Great has done. Right? John chapter 10 verse 10. Let the precept speak, man. You see me? John chapter 10 verse 10 is red letter, so it's YaHaWaShi. The thief cometh not, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. Right? The thief, we know that's wicked Esau, man. You see me? Stealing, killing, and destroying. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. Right? YaHaWaShi has come so that we might have life. Right? Back to Micah chapter 2. Right? And this is all that Babylon the Great, wicked Esau, right, has done, man. Micah 2 verse 2. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away, so they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. Right? They've coveted fields, right? Land masses, other territories. They've gone forth killing, stealing, and destroying, colonizing, naming lands after themselves, right? Psalms 49 verse 10 or 11, if I'm not mistaken, right? Naming lands after themselves, right? And take them away, so they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. Then they oppress they oppress a man's heritage, they oppress a man in his house, right? They impose their doctrine, their way of life, their philosophy, their wine, transgresseth by wine, spoken about in Habakkuk chapter 2. We'll get that next. You know what I mean? Right? This is what Babylon the Great has done, man. Verse 3. Therefore thus saith YaHaWah power, behold, against his family do I devise an evil, against his family. The Most High YaHaWaShi has devised the evil against Babylon the Great, America the Great, wicked Esau and his family, the banking families and their elites, right? From which ye shall not remove your necks. You can't remove your necks from it, man. It's coming. The precepts say so, man. Neither shall you go haughtily, for this time is evil. Can't escape it, man. Right? The Most High is putting an evil in place that you can't remove your necks from, man. You see me? Back to Jeremiah 50 verse 43. Let the precept speak. Jeremiah 50 verse 43 once again. The king of Babylon hath heard the report of them, and his hands wax feeble. Anguish took hold of him, and pangs as of a woman in travail. Right. So listen, man. DJ Trump looking worn out right now, man. Listen, man. Right? And this new development today that came out, Iran wants to press charges. They want to indict the president of the United States, man. The king of Babylon. Right? Habakkuk chapter 2. And listen, only America the Great at this very time and moment can invade another country and snatch somebody up. Right? I don't see DJ Trump getting snatched up. You know what I mean? But America the Great's been able to do that throughout throughout their whole going through colonizing, raping, stealing, pillaging, right? Instituting their doctrine, right? Habakkuk 2 chapter 5. Yea, also because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man, right? Transgressed by wine, right? His false doctrine, blaspheming the Most High, the names of the Most High, YaHaWaShi, YaHaWaShi, right? Pushing forth his doctrine. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, never stays at home, right? Always colonizing, always going forth and snatching it up. We read that in Micah 2. Coveting fields, right? Who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death, right? Enlarges his desire as hell and is as death. He's going forth pillaging, raping, stealing, right? Planting his flag all over the planet, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and he heapeth unto him all people, right? Gathering all nations, that's his colonizing. Heapeth unto him all people, that's his colonizing. Verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, right? So all these that have been colonized and raped and pillaged and stolen from, right? Beaten down, right? Invaded, right? Shall not all these take up a parable against him, right? They're all going to take up a parable against them, against Babylon the Great, America the Great, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, right? So they're right now, all these other nations are like, yo, whoa, this man's been taking and increasing, taking that's not his, right? Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. Destruction to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? Right? It's a question. And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay, right? Thick clay, debt. Babylon the Great, America the Great, trillions of dollars in debt, man. Yes, man. Verse 7, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be booties unto them? Right? So all these other nations are rising up, man. Right? Doesn't it say in Revelation chapter 17, these shall hate the whore, right? The NATO and the EU going to turn around and hate the whore being Babylon the Great. As a matter of fact, let's get it. Revelation 17. Revelation 17 verse 16, and it reads, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, right? NATO and the EU, man. The other nations, right? These shall hate the whore. Hate the whore. The whore is the beast. Babylon the Great, America the Great, spiritual Egypt, spiritual Babylon. And these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire, right? Burn her with fire. Those ICBM missiles that are coming, man. Spoken about in Jeremiah chapter 50, right? The arrows shall strike and not miss, right? That's those ICBMs, right? So all these other nations, they're hating the whore, man. The whore, Babylon the Great. Verse 7 once again, Habakkuk 2 verse 7 once again. Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them, booties, treasure, right? So they're going to pillage, take from you, right? Right? These are the nations, right? These that hate the whore, right? Suddenly shall rise up and bite thee, right? And shall be for booties unto them, right? They're going to take your treasures, booties being treasures. Verse 8, because thou hast spoiled many nations, right? Babylon the Great, America the Great has spoiled many nations. All the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, right? And those that are left from those nations that they spoiled are going to turn around and spoil thee. Spoil meaning to rob, take, right? Because of men's blood, right? And for the violence of the land, right? The men's blood that has been shed at the hands of Babylon the Great, America the Great, right? And the violence that they've inflicted on these other lands, coveting fields, right? And for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein, right? All these other nations are just going to take up, man. Going to take up a fight, right? Going to take up and rise up against Babylon the Great, right? Right? And through the spirit and power of YaHaWaShi, YaHaWaShi, we're just prophesying the downfall of Babylon the Great, right? The glory of the Chaldeans. You see me? Isaiah 47 verse 10, right? So listen, wanting to indict the king of Babylon, DJ Trump. Call Allah YaHaWaShi, YaHaWaShi, BaHaSham, Qadash, right? And the Most High is just setting it up, man, right? Setting it up. Great mischief. Great mischief is going to take Babylon the Great, man, right? And they not know where it comes from, right? Isaiah 47 verse, Isaiah 47, chapter 47. Isaiah 47 verse 10. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth me. Right? Babylon the Great has trusted in the wickedness, man. Their method of conquering, going forth, pillaging and stealing. Right? They've trusted in it. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee. Right? Their wisdom and their knowledge has perverted them, man. Right? They think they're untouchable. And thou hast said in thy heart, I am and none also beside me. I am and none also beside me. I'm the top of top, man. I'm the alpha, right? Because of the wisdom, the knowledge, understanding. Doesn't it say wiser than Daniel? Ezekiel. Ezekiel 28 verse 3. Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that they can hide from thee. Verse 4. With thy wisdom and with thine understanding, thou hast gotten thee riches. Right? Their wisdom and understanding, man. Their wisdom, their knowledge, their understanding, their technology, their military. Right? With thy wisdom and with thine understanding, thou hast gotten thee riches, and hast gotten gold and silver into thy treasures. Right? So they feel they're untouchable, man. You see me? It has perverted thee. Isaiah 47. Back to Isaiah 47 verse 10. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and knowledge, it hath perverted thee. And thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. Right? Babylon the Great, man. Feel it, said they're alpha dog. Nobody can touch them. But all these other nations are going to rise up, man. Right? These shall hate the horror. You see me? Verse 11. Therefore shall evil come upon thee, thou shalt not know from whence it riseth. Right? They ain't going to know where it cometh from, man. And mischief shall fall upon thee, thou shalt not be able to put it off. This mischief that's coming, they can't put it off, man. It says in, didn't we read in Micah chapter 2, verse 3, can't remove their neck from the evil that the Most High YaHaWaShi, YaHaWaShi is devising for thee, right? Can't remove their neck from it, man. Can't put it off. Thou shalt not be able to put it off. And desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, with that which thou shalt not know, right? Right? Prophesying the downfall of spiritual Babylon, America the Great, right? The glory of the Chaldeans. Simon, right? The Most High is at work, man, right? The Most High is at work. Us in this truth, Most High willing, we're of that number, we're of the elect, right? We're attaching scriptures to the we're seeing the prophecies unveil, and we're attaching the scriptures, and we're blowing the trumpet, man. You see me? I pray you're edified, man. You know what I mean? I pray you're edified. Most High willing, you're edified. Just wanted to touch on that. Call Allah YaHaWah, BaHaSham, YaHaWaShi, BaHaSham, Qadash. Double honors once again to the apostles and elders of great millstone and teach well and rule well. Peace and salutation to the Aki and pushing his truth all over the earth. Kwame Asherallah, Abad Babal.